now every year. And people know we're going to come back next year and we're going to be even better. And we learned a lot this year. We know some things that we can improve, things that people ask us about, and things that people want. And to me, that's what we do. That we listen to that, and I really appreciate it. I'd like to thank everybody who were the artists, all the dancers, the rec committee, especially Sean Keegan and his group did a great job and prepping the beach. And I think we can do even more and do what we did even better. So I appreciate it, and thank you very much to everybody who was there, and we look forward to next year.
Hear, hear.
And I think I just heard Dennis wants to do this again next year. So maybe you're going to run again?
Well, we'll see. You know, you can run you can be on the committee and not be on the select board, can't you?
Oh, wow, I don't think so.
Okay, yeah, gotcha. Roger that. Yep, roger that.
Okay,
Thank
well,
you.
any other members of the board have any other comments? In the back of your packet, you'll find the assessor certification of assessment, which set the town property tax rate, which you probably received your bill, at $19.55 per thousand, and that is a dime. And of course, that all builds back into the due diligence of the budget and everything. But I do want to specifically thank the Board of Assessors and our assessor. And the Board of Assessors is actually a subgroup of the Select Board. So that's Ralph, Catherine, and Christine, right?
Nope, Dennis.
Dennis.
Yep.
Dennis,
Dennis,
excuse
me, and Ralph.
I got it. Okay, I'm trying to read signatures here.
That's what you don't want your signature too
But
legible.
I do
when you
want to
sign
thank,
it.
I do want to thank the three of you. I mean, I know that, you know, the numbers are computational in nature, but they need to be reviewed, they need to be properly looked at and certified. So thanks for that work.
Also, we want to
There's-
thank the office. They work
I
very
just-
hard on that.
Yes.
Very much so.
I'd like to just note that I think David Ledoux is a godsend.
Oh, good.
He is highly, highly professional, well-respected throughout the state. And I think by virtue of his involvement as our agent, we can be very comfortable with the validity of our assessment values on properties across the board. I was skeptical after I went to the last meeting as a private citizen. He has done yeoman's work, and our values are solid.
Yeah.
And I suspect will be for a good while to come, and the only decision we will have to make over at some point is when we will look at a full-blown revaluation, be it statistical or physical. But I think that's, from my sense, it's still a good ways off.
Good.
A comment after a question.
Yes.
So this increase was how much over last year's bill?
I believe it was 10 cents, is that correct?
You want me to answer that?
10 cents.
Oh,
yep.
you
Got
can
that?
answer
Yeah.
that.
It was last year it was 19.44, and this
Okay.
year it was 19.55.
11
So
cents.
11 cents, but it sounds
Oh, yeah.
easier when you say a dime.
Okay, and I just want to make a point that includes the school funding. And the school funding had quite a healthy increase this year. And typically, that has caused us to have a jump in our tax rate closer to a mill and not closer to 11
11
cents.
cents.
So that is a fantastic position that we're in, and that's due to increase in value in the town and the good work of the assessors,
A lot.
assessing agent and the
yeah.
assessing board. So-
David found a lot of extra value for
Yeah, I would also like to say this as a matter of public record, if you'll give me leave here. It also indicates that Reed Field's properties are selling and new homes are being built. It reflects homes in Reed Field that are selling, and it reflects the way that people are renovating, they are building homes in Reed Field, and it is an absolute fact, verified by these numbers, that that is the case. So if that ever is called into question, then we will have some pretty ironclad ways of saying, though there may be a perception that people are leaving or it is in fact quite the opposite. And we are lucky to have such a great town that people would want to move into in the first place and build their home. So
All you
thank
have to do is look at the asks for the houses that are on the market and you will see that folks are very proud of their property, and in most cases justifiably so. I don't want to rain on the parade too much, but I think the growth in the grand list may be something of an anomaly. I don't know that you're going to see 2+% again next year. It may revert back to more in the neighborhood of 1.5%. And if that's the case and the school budget is aggressive, 11 cents may, we may be wishing for the good old days.
Yes.
We understand that, and actually, we do know that year 2 of that bond package that
Yes.
the school passed will be a more aggressive step.
how
We
is-
also funded 2 major projects ourselves
Right.
this year as well.
So debt service is going to be kicking in.
Mhm.
I'm not sure how the school district is structured. I know how ours is structured. It's flat payments across the board without declining interest. And that's fine. It's much more manageable that way, I think.
Our debt service for the town is fairly level.
Yeah.
We plan that pretty well.
But the school will have a big bump. I think it was $500,000+ for the bond
Yes.
that we'll see next year before there are any operational increases.
Well, I think it's
So-
time for them to really look at things.
Well, I also would recommend calling your legislators,
Yeah.
Yes.
Get
who are
it-
up for reelection.
Yes.
And that did help too, that the homestead exemption went through and we got more municipal revenue sharing.
Absolutely.
And we can hope that that will continue.
Good. I think we'll move
Thank you.
on with that to staff reports.
All right, I will be giving my town manager's report here, and it's a little bit longer than usual, but I'll try to be quick, but we have a lot going on, and it's an exciting time, so.
Is that available online somewhere?
Yes.
Or is it right over there on the table, too?
It's on the table, but it's also available if you jump out of the packet. It should be right in that same,
Right, it's another click.
the same matrix for the,
Real, honest to God,
Yeah.
paper.
but while you,
I'll take it.
Okay.
should be under report for this meeting.
Please go ahead.
Okay.
Yes,
we're
yep.
good.
So I'll start with maintenance and infrastructure, and I'll note that we've received plans for the library roof replacement. And I'll be working with the engineer to develop and distribute bid documents in the next 2 weeks. So that should put us on track to get the roof done this fall. There's a chance that with the market being as tight as it is, that we might not be able to get a contractor in to do the work this fall. It might be later in the winter. But this work really can happen in a variety of circumstances, but just wanted to note that we have that, and we're moving ahead, and our intent is to get the work done this fall.
How intense is that job?
It's pretty intense.
Okay, I thought so.
It wouldn't necessarily require the closing of the library, but the second floor, certainly we would want to minimize activity up there because there could be some, dust and issues like that. The whole roof's going to come off. The whole roof will come off. We can put up and will put up staging to allow folks to enter the building like you see in Boston without shingles falling on their heads. So those precautions will be taken. The library will be able to function. It won't be the same as if nothing was going on. We'll have
Right.
staging on site, things like that. But it's a fairly intensive project. However, it's fairly quick. We're looking at engineered trusses, so those will come, we expect, prefabricated on the back of a truck. They'll get dropped off on site, and then they'll have a crane pop them up, and that should be a pretty quick process once it gets moved along. So, yeah. The next item, the fire station plan is being carried through to the next phase, which is the detailed review we had presented prior to the town meeting vote. Descriptions of the floor plan and basic cost estimates. We're now working on getting final, or not final, but I guess 80% plans for us to review and move into that final phase of design and planning prior to construction. At this point, it's looking as though we likely won't have any work being done this fall on this particular project, which is okay with me because I would feel a little bit better having the library project done and then moving on to the fire station as a separate sequence. But that's moving ahead as well. I think I had something else in there. Code review is scheduled for August, later this month. And we have initiated the local permitting process for the site plan for the fire station expansion and the code work that's required for permit approval for the subsurface wastewater, the septic system. We have completed review of draft bid documents for the salt sand shed, and those will be, and that's repair of that building, we're not putting a new one up. Those will be put out this week and due the first week of September in order for the select board to have review mid-month, following review and recommendation by the road committee. At least that's the way we intended to lay out. And then we'll have the project completed by end of October. Right now, the bid documents say mid-October, but that can sometimes get pushed out a little bit. Let's see, bids would go out this week for ADA improvements to the town office parking lot. So that's the area that's immediately in front of the entrance. That little sidewalk that's there does not meet ADA accessibility guidelines. And if you open the door, the sidewalk's blocked. There's not a really good way to get into the building if you have mobility issues. So that's going to be corrected. We'll be basically almost doubling the width of that sidewalk and regrading the parking stalls in front of that area to allow for ADA spaces to be installed on
Still just one space, or? will it
no,
be-
we'll have, I think we'll have two, but I've got to look back at the plans, but I think it calls for two anyway, given the number of spaces that we have total. I'd like to see more, and long-term, we're actually looking at trying to find a way to get a crosswalk installed on 17 so we can expand the lot across the way for use by people without mobility issues, and then have more spaces over here to accommodate our older residents. So this is long-term stuff, but and I talked with the engineer about it today a little bit, actually, because he came in to talk about that project out front. It's a real good opportunity for us. That lot, I think, could be something down the road, but that's a couple years off at least before we even really start planning for it with our capital planning. So, but that's going to happen out front, hopefully this fall. Moving on, we are scheduling paving of South Road for September, as well as an apron on Loose Road on the 17 end. So that area, even in midsummer, gets potholes. I had a call about it today, actually, because there's so much aggressive turning traffic, people not being able to slow down or not wanting to slow down on 17 and really cranking around that corner, that causes a lot of movement and a lot of friction. And then people trying to pull out quickly onto 17, you have a lot of acceleration, deceleration, all of that happening in that one area, potholes. And it's worse in the spring and worse in the fall. But we are looking at paving that apron about 60 feet back, so that would give us 3 full car lengths of queue heading onto 17 and a pretty suitable space for deceleration coming off 17. We're going to narrow up the apron a little bit. That's going to be a big improvement to that roadway as far as safety and usability.
Do the users of Loose Road know that?
One person stopped by while we were, and she was ecstatic that we were considering it. So,
Yeah, okay.
no, they don't. When we do prepare to do the paving work, we'll put out a notice. But it's been something that we've been batting around for a while, and
Yeah.
with South Road paving happening right next door, it seemed a really opportune time to get that work
Great
done.
job. That's an excellent foresight.
Do we still send out a notice to all the residents on the roads we're paving or working on?
I'm not sure if we've done that in the past, but that's an excellent idea.
I know we've done it in the.
I always like just a little
past.
heads up.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? If I
yeah.
know we're using South Road, then I probably just, hey,
Once you know the date, you can put up signs at the
Yeah.
front
Yeah.
and back of the roads.
And I mean, we do have the ability to do a mailing. I think, I think you mentioned it. We did do that for Harmony Hills.
Right.
And maybe one of the others, maybe Adele Road, but definitely Harmony Hills because that's basically a dead end. Or it is a dead end, not basically. And so, yeah, we did notify those folks, that's right. So we can do the same for South Road.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Even if you have signs, I think it just goes a long way towards people feeling included and being important. You know, it's your road, it's gonna be down for a few days while we're doing this, you're gonna have to go around, there'll be noise.
Do you go all the way Up to Beaver Dam.
No, we're only doing the section that's truly South Road that ends at
The sharp left.
Tallwood Drive.
Tallwood
Yes.
Drive.
Yep, yep. The other section's newer, Beaver Dam's newer and in better
Yeah.
condition. Yeah, so that'll be, and actually, I did make a note, Catherine, as well, about a notice for Luce Road. I think Dennis started that discussion, because it's a good way to let people know that they just got their tax bills.
Yeah, yeah.
We're spending it on you.
We're doing things to help them out, so.
Right,
I think
and if we
it's-
can't
it's
pave
a-
the whole road, I think it's such a great idea, and it's such an easy thing. Like you said, if everything's gonna be there, my God, pop over, lay
Yeah,
it down.
yeah. Well, that was the follow-up question from that woman that stopped by, was,
Yeah.
when are you gonna pave it? The rest of it, and I said, that's a million and a half proposition, and we're gonna have to think long and hard about if and when we do that.
Yes.
But that was definitely the follow-up question. Yeah.
And how far are we paving in?
Just 60 feet from the edge
Yeah.
of 17.
So
It's like
about
a
3 car
asphalt
lengths.
dicky.
Yeah, about 3
Yeah.
car lengths, yeah.
You know,
There's a cross culvert there, we're stopping about 5 feet in front of the culvert.
Okay.
Eric, as an alternative to paving, has this town ever considered oil and stone penetration, chip sealing? It takes potholes
Yeah.
away, and if you use a good binding oil, it lasts, holds up over plowing, and if you get in a 3-year cycle of rotation, you can actually build roadbed. It cut down dust, limits pothole maintenance, and it's a lot cheaper than paving, and you do get an upgrade in your road surface.
Yeah, I haven't considered that particular application. Chip sealing is something we have considered for our paved surfaces, but not for our gravel
Yeah.
surfaces.
It works for both. If you've got
Yeah.
a good paved surface that's starting to crumble on the shoulders and all the rest, a little hot patch and a chip seal gives you 2 or 3 more years.
Yeah, and we've had a number of companies.
But it also works going right over dirt.
Yeah, I haven't seen that in Maine, but we can take a look at it.
I've experienced it.
that's right, that's right.
So some of the
He knows
locals
his
don't
chip seal.
like it because you're compromising quaint old country roads, but it sure as heck solves the pothole problem.
Yeah.
And it gives you a leg up on ongoing maintenance at a lower cost.
Yeah, well, that's a good,
I grew up on it.
Well, we might
Option
want
to
to
look
look at
at,
how much Loose Road has been increasing in development.
Yeah, how many people live on the loose?
more and more every year. I mean, every year there's a house start, it seems.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
And
there's a
so
lot of
that-
land
Yeah.
back there.
Yeah.
That should be something the road committee can look at and determine if
I-
and when it
I-
needs an upgrade
yes.
in surface.
I know it's crazy, and I remember the look that John Parent would give me whenever I mentioned it, but I just, whatever. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'll talk about that with the road committee. We can look at.
It's a cost-effective
yeah.
alternative that cuts down maintenance, cuts down dust, and gives the roadbed some stability so that when you actually do get ready to pave, if you've done this 2 or 3 times, you've got something you can mill up and mix, and that gives you a nice firm bed, and your binder coat doesn't have to be as thick.
Yeah, well, that's nice, those are good benefits, yeah, absolutely. All right, so I made a note about that for gravel roads. Moving on, crack sealing will be happening August 14th through 16th this week, weather and schedule permitting. Weather looks pretty good, so it really is dependent upon the schedule of the contractor, but we'll keep our fingers crossed for that happening this week. I'll note that Anna Carl is taking the lead on putting together a schedule for culvert replacement and repair. We have about a dozen or so culverts and catch basins town-wide that need to be looked at. And this is a good project, I think, for her to expand her abilities and skill set on as the deputy road commissioner. So I'm looking forward to working with her on that.
Eric, are those metal culverts?
Some, a lot of what we're having trouble with is driveway culverts that, where people pave over them, and they rise up a few inches and it cracks the asphalt and the plows hit it, and it's just, a lot of it is driveway culverts, and a lot of them are actually plastic. This type of issue is what's driven discussion at the road committee around going from a 15-inch minimum to a 12-inch minimum unless we have good cause to want a larger capacity for water flow, because the 12-inch, it's a small decrease in the diameter, but it really reduces the surface area that you have, reduces frost action, keeps less cold air flowing through. There's a few different reasons why 12-inch can be a real benefit. But I'm also considering how we want to pursue or proceed with future driveway entrances, and whether or not we should be making a disclaimer that if you pave over a culvert, that the town may or may not be responsible for repairing the asphalt if it cracks. Because if we have a gravel driveway and a gravel top, we can add gravel to either side, match it out, and help keep water out of the roadway. It's actually not a bad thing necessarily, but with the asphalt, you can't do that. You have to go in and pave, and so it can be a much more costly and time-consuming process.
Yes, I have 2 of those driveway culverts on my property.
Yes.
And I know my next-door neighbor is having a similar.
Yeah, that whole stretch, we've replaced a couple on Lane Road, and I think Lane and a lot of those culverts were done at the same time as part of one big project, and we're having problems throughout because they either weren't placed deep enough, or just over time, because of the larger diameter, they've risen more quickly. Most of those culverts aren't more than 10 or 15 years old, I don't think.
If you don't have, if you have significant flow issues, you can just put 2 12-inchers side by side, and that will solve your rising and lowering issue, and still allow you to accommodate, a more aggressive drainage issues.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility there too, and yeah, so it's an ongoing issue anyway. I was wanted
Well,
to.
I asked because I know we went to the black plastic ones.
I'm going to
because they were
ask the
supposed to
board
go
to
for a long
refrain
time.
from questions until the end of Eric's report.
Yeah, sorry, we're
And
going to run forever.
We
Yep.
allotted 5 minutes for this, and we're 15 now.
Okay,
And I don't have a problem with that.
No, I know what
This
you're
is
saying.
I'm at your pleasure on the
Yep.
questions,
No.
but I
I'm
just
with
want
you.
to maybe complete the report and then ask a couple of,
Sure,
Sorry
yeah,
about
all right. Well,
Go ahead.
it gets pretty boring after this, I think.
bore away.
All
That's
right,
it.
so the Marina Hook Lake Outlet Dam project is ongoing. We've had a few issues. They had some issues with water penetrating underneath the cofferdam that was put in place to help manage the construction site and the water flow, but things seem to be more or less on track, and I want to thank Catherine for attending those meetings over the summer for the construction. I mean, it was a above and beyond type of thing, so thank you.
It's fun, I get to go look at the dam.
It's neat what's going on down there. So we are also going, speaking of dams, going out to bid again for the Torrey Pond Dam and Bridge project. We did put it out. We only had one bid come back in, and the bid actually had a flaw in it from the bidder. So we're going to look at things a little bit differently and put it out again and see if we can get some more interest later on in the fall. That project, again, is scheduled for next summer. Moving on to the transfer station, Eco Maine was on site for the Heritage Days at the beach. It was great to see them down there. I think they had some traffic, which was wonderful. We have ordered the attendant booth for the transfer station. The total cost of that will be around $6,000, including electrification, insulation, getting the thing on site, and the cost of the structure. It is a little bit of money, but it's an investment that I firmly believe will improve operational efficiency and help reduce waiting times at the transfer station, and improve safety too, because we won't have staff running back and forth between vehicles trying to figure out what's going on. They can do it all right there before it gets to the busy area. I am working on a press release for recycling. Eco Maine actually brought the idea up to me. We've done an excellent job over the last year. We have had less than 2% on average contamination, and we've avoided any kind of penalties for contamination fees for over a year. So that is a real big thumbs up to our residents who have been doing an excellent job getting things cleaned up and keeping plastic film and other contaminants out of our waste stream. So that's been awesome. Moving on to administration and personnel. Our new CEO is working out very well, and I've been impressed with his progress and his work. His schedule right now is basically half a day on Mondays, from noon on Mondays, and then basically a 10 or 12-hour day on Wednesdays, depending on whether there's a planning board meeting or not. He's also available by phone and is checking his email and his voicemail remotely, which is something new for us. So we have less physical time in the office for the short term, but we're also having much more availability generally. So I think that's going to be a good balance for us. And as he transitions out of his other position, I think we'll get more time in the office. I have started the annual review process for the staff, and that will be completed by the end of August. The select board should be considering my annual review in October. The Reedfield Enterprise Fund is back in business. I want to thank that committee for their work. They've done an exceptional job, and we had a piece in the Kennebec Journal, I think it was today or yesterday, which I would really like to see, and I appreciate the fact that they highlighted one of our committee members and someone who was also a beneficiary of the program the first time around. So I think it's exciting for us to be able to reinvest in the community because we do have a lot going on downtown, and a lot of that was highlighted during Heritage Days. So I'm just really pleased to see this momentum building around our downtown, one of our downtown areas. The assessors met, we've talked about that quite extensively, but again, highlights are a small increase, and many, many thanks to the state of Maine for their reinvestment in local communities. It was a much larger number than we had originally anticipated, closer to $200,000, which is fantastic, and there's a possibility we might be able to get another increase next year. I'm not holding my breath on that, but that increased level of funding this year has made a huge difference for us. The tax bills will be, I guess they're already out. Yeah, I had this from an older report. They are out. You should have them. If you don't get your tax bill, give me a call. We'll correct that oversight and make sure you get it. But folks have been coming into the office and letting us know that they've been receiving them, and we're actually doing very well. Prepayments are up. I think people are in a better position than they have been over the past couple of years, so we're looking stronger financially as a community. Briefs have been filed in the Batar case, and the town will likely have no action for the next 5 or 6 months. I don't like to say too much about that overall, but I think it's important for people to know where we are in that process and the fact that it is continuing to be in litigation, and we don't have really anything to do now except for wait for the judge to make a decision. There might be a few details here and there, but that's where that stands. I attended the annual Management Institute last week, and it was amazing how relevant a lot of the sessions were to what we're doing. They had sessions on LED streetlights. They had sessions on age-friendly activities, 2 of them actually. They had sessions on solar projects. They had sessions on capital planning. Very relevant stuff. One of the most relevant I found was the Friday morning sessions, which first was on marijuana policy, the second was on the opioid crisis, and it was a good reminder, the latter, that these issues do exist in our communities, and we need to be looking for data and being proactive and helping with this issue because things have subsided a little bit in the state of Maine, but it's still a real concern and one that very often goes under the radar unless you talk to somebody that's in law enforcement or EMS services. So I want to thank the board for the opportunity to attend that session or that institute, which was 3 days and a big investment of my time, but one I think is well worth it. And then Heritage Days was awesome. It was all about Reedfield, and my family, we very much enjoyed it, and it was just great to see everybody working together and just the right pace. It wasn't crazy. The music was awesome. The food was even better. So, yeah.
Are there any concise questions that will get concise answers from anybody?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Can the press release be the solid waste article for the Messenger for September?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to email.
Easy peasy, yeah.
Get that from you. And when will our CEO be here on a regular basis? I mean, I know he is now, a permanent basis.
That's to be determined. We're still trying to figure out exactly how that transition is going to take place. I don't know what his final commitments are.
That's fine.
So I don't know yet.
Okay,
That's
so
concise.
that's pending. And are we going to schedule his review stuff tonight?
No, we won't schedule it tonight.
Okay, but we'll
But
schedule it in
it
time.
will happen in October. in October.
Is this the
So,
one where we're gonna get feedback from people?
right, so I will prepare the normal package for that and circulate it to select board members. And then it'll probably be done actually the latter part of October.
Thanks.
We'll probably collect the information during October.
I have one quick one.
Sure.
Cash flow. I'm assuming that our operations right now are being funded by the fund balance because the tax bills have just gone out. What kind of shape is the fund balance in?
Very, very healthy. I looked today, we were at 1.6 million in our sweep account, which is
Beautiful.
very healthy.
Yeah, okay.
And as I said, prepayments.
And revenues are
up.
coming in, so we'll be
Yeah,
off that.
We will be in wonderful shape, yeah.
Great.
And, the school takes that down pretty quickly
Sure.
over the next few months until we get to, the first full due date for taxes.
Living
But-
on surplus.
Yeah, but
until-
we're healthy, so.
Okay, good.
We can do the warrants anytime.
Yeah, what I'll do is actually go with the appointments and reappointments first, and then we'll go to the boards, committees, and then the warrants, if that's acceptable to everybody by consensus. Okay, so appointments, reappointments, and resignations. The first one is to consider the resignation of Ed Sims from the road committee. So Ed just gave us a brief note. I'm actually going to follow up with him personally, but he is resigned, so I'll move we accept that resignation.
I'll
Second.
Go ahead.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. To consider the appointment of Thomas Molicky to the Maranacook Lake Outlet Dam Committee. Is Thomas here?
Yep.
Thomas, would you go up to the mic? And you can start off by telling me how badly I butchered your last name.
Not bad. I used to teach school, I said, kids had trouble with my name, and I would say, okey dokey Maloki is an
Okay,
easy way.
Maloki. Okay, good. So Thomas, this is really our opportunity to ask you any questions we might have, and generally welcome you more than anything else. You're volunteering, and so forth, and also to give you the opportunity to ask us any questions you might have. So it's very informal, and then we'll move and we'll get you on that committee. So would you like to say a few words?
Sure, I've been a resident of the town since 1976. I previously served on the school board, the Board of Appeals. I've been on the Board of Directors of the Maranacook Lake Association. And because of a chance meeting over at the town office with Eric, I asked him about vacancies I had seen on the community TV thing, and he said, would you consider that? To which I said yes, and I've been a resident. I live over off the South Road on Thorpe Shores, down on a camp road on the lake. I have had a keen interest in the lake. You don't poop in your backyard. The lake is all of our backyards, so I hope to be a productive member of that group, and I welcome the chance to volunteer again. And I'd also like to say, I don't come to the meetings here, the select board, but Eric knows I faithfully watch them on the TV because I come and ask him questions on.
That's right.
What's going on? And I really would like to thank all of you for your time commitment to run this town and to make this town a better place to live. Each of you give way more than the citizens give you, that you really make this town a great place to live. My two children have grown up through here. They're now adults, and one still lives in this town, and another one lives out in California. And the California kid just finished a 3-week vacation saying he wanted to get back to Maine. That speaks
Thank you.
Thank you
for
very much.
my view of the town and my appreciation for all of you and the class that, you have put forth in dealing with some very difficult issues in this town, very difficult, but you've done with dignity and respect. And a lot of that is due to Eric and Bruce and all of your contributions. And that's my thank you to you. But I'd be happy to answer any questions. I appreciate being moved up.
Well, my only question was, do you like us? But
Yeah, right?
I really do appreciate that, and my only comment would be is, you know, I do appreciate you stepping up to volunteer for this. This also involves Winthrop, right? Yeah, so this is kind of a representation of our town as well, so it's an important committee, and I mean, once that dam project is done, the operation of that dam, water levels will be able to be controlled better and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So that representation by someone who's actually experiencing it is, I think, very important to us. So
Hear, hear.
I'm going to go ahead and move that we appoint Thomas Maloki
Maloki.
Okey-dokey.
to a term on the
Okey-dokey,
Marana Cook
Bruce.
Dam Outlet Committee that will extend through June 30th, 2021.
I second.
Okay, I heard the second here. And so, is there any discussion?
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Okey-dokey.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye, aye.
You don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting. You can catch us on TV, or you can stay.
That's right, that's right. See yourself on TV. Yeah,
Okay.
stick around.
When you see
It
yourself
gets
nodding
better,
off,
yeah.
it's time
Grace
to
is
go home.
nice. She won't hurt you.
To consider the appointment of Donna Witherell to the Library Board of Trustees. Has Donna been appointed previously?
She has. and
Yeah, this
she's-
is a
It's a reappointment.
Okay, fine, so it's.
Slightly out of sequence, but it is a
It
reappointment.
is a reappointment. Okay, so, could I have a motion in regards to Donna's?
I move to appoint Donna Witherell to the Library Committee for a term of 3 years that ends on 6/30/22.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to appoint Donna Witherell to the Library Board of Trustees, and for the term noted. Any questions?
Thank you for your service.
Thank
Really
Okay, all in
appreciate it.
favor? Great, good. Now we'll go back and we'll go ahead and do boards, committees, and then we're going to get to those warrants. So I want to thank the following committees and departments and enter into the record their minutes for the Solid Waste and Recycling Committee minutes of May 29th, 2019, the Library Board of Trustees minutes for June 5, 2019, the Conservation Commission minutes of June 11, 2019, and the Age-Friendly minutes of June 12th, 2019. Did anybody have any comments or questions about the board's committee and commission's minutes? I only had one, and that was on the Conservation Commission, Eric. There was some discussion about asking you about
Oh, yeah.
the relocation of the trail. Is that something we're going to try to participate in?
Yeah, and it's actually, it's an interesting
Because
issue.
we now have like a dip there.
We do, and it's something that we've been struggling with a solution for. The proposal coming from conservation is somewhat at odds with the original grant application. And so we're trying to work with the granting agency to find out whether or not we can make an adjustment to the work that was proposed for which we've received funding.
For the parking lot.
For the parking lot, and the grant was intended to make two purposes: improve access and improve safety. And the question is whether routing the trail through the edge of the parking lot meets that safety expectation, or whether the original proposal to move it outside of that area, down into the field a little bit, is a better alternative. My initial discussion with the granting agency, I guess it's a throughput from through the state of Maine. I'm trying to think of the name of the,
Well,
trails,
yeah, I just
yeah,
wanted
yeah.
to make sure that we were
The escrow
looking at it.
We are,
And
yeah.
I'm not sure if just somehow extending the grading down into the trail itself is a doable, or steps, well,
it is in that area, but it's also, that pitch isn't that much different than what exists already with the pitch going down to the ball fields. So there are definitely a few different considerations there.
okay, well, just as long as
yeah.
we're looking into it. So that will wrap up that. We'll get into the warrants. The floor is yours, Catherine.
Okay, we don't have any warrants to sign tonight because these have all been taken care of before, so we're reviewing them for the benefit of the public. Warrant, I'm gonna make sure I do this
We do
right.
we do actually approve them, however.
We do?
For the record, yeah.
Oh, for the record,
Yeah.
okay. They've all been signed
They have been signed
previously, I
to
should
be,
say.
so they can be
Okay.
actualized.
Right. So we have warrant 3, which was the regular warrant in the amount of $152,475.04. Items of note there. Eric, we spent, this is a while ago now, Atlantic
Yeah.
Recycling Equipment for about $1,200.
That was for our annual maintenance of the compactor equipment.
Okay, thank you. And we made a payment to Key Bank of almost $110,000, and that was for a bond?
Yes. That's actually, I believe, a payoff of the 2013 road bond, or maybe it was 2008. Can't remember which, but
I think it was the final payment.
yeah.
We made a payment of almost $10,000, $9,980 to Mainland Development Consultants. That was for work that they have done in preparation for the library and fire station projects.
Correct?
And we paid we paid Somerset County Treasurer. Those are our fees for the fire department, for E911, right?
Dispatching, yep.
Dispatch, that's the word I was looking for.
Yep.
There was nothing else noteworthy. If anyone has any questions, I can answer them.
So warrants 3 and 4, 4 being the payroll of $16,364.95, total $168,840. I'll defer to you, Catherine. Do you want to put a motion to that?
Yes, I'd like to move that number.
Okay. And may I have a second?
Second?
Is there any question on approving warrants 3 and 4 in the sum of $168,840? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. We'll move on to,
Warrant 5 and 6.
Yep.
5 is the regular warrant, 6 is payroll. The regular warrant is $365,384.69, primarily that large because we have a school payment in there. There's payroll of $17,395.55 along with state fees, so the total amount is $382,780.24. Some highlights there. Let's see. We paid $16,000 to Androscoggin Bank. I believe that was for a bond payment, Eric?
Leases, for this, that was the lease payment for the Bobcat sidewalk machine.
Okay.
Yep.
Whoa, that just got very large. Okay. The school payment was $309,199.51. I think we had talked about this at the last time, but that is the amount that we'll be paying for each of the following now
Every
10
month.
months, because we've made the July and the August payments.
but that, yeah, the Androscoggin payment, that's a one-time payment, right?
Yes, that is
Once a year.
Right.
Yep.
That
Just
was
to
a
be clear,
3-year.
That's not a monthly that's sitting out there.
No.
No, the
No, no, no.
RSU is, that's what it is.
No.
I understand that.
We had $1,000 to the post office, that was just for the metering, but we also had a large bill, I thought, to, where was that? Oh, there it is, $1,843 to the Kennebec County Registry of Deeds, that was for filing the liens.
Yep.
So that was that, and other than that, they are all typical expenses, but I'll take any questions.
The lease for the Bobcat blower,
Yes.
what's the length of the term of the lease? How far into that are we?
3 years.
3 years.
And
So is this year
the-
2?
I believe this is year 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I will make a motion to approve warrants 5 and 6 in the amount of $382,780.24.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to approve warrants 5 and 6 in the total of $382,780.24. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. Now we'll get back on track. Sort of zigzag. Consider funding for a municipal broadband project in collaboration with other towns. And so this is.
Are you going to do public comment?
Excuse me, you're right. I missed public comment. Are there any members of the public who would like to step up and make comment tonight? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
My apologies for skipping over that. That's never my meaning to do that. So we'll now move on to considering funding for a municipal broadband project in collaboration with other towns. So I've been serving on the six-town committee that is looking at broadband operations, and we did approve previously $500 that we spent to prepare a grant. We won the grant, so that was $12,000 that we won, which we matched $12,000, and so the six towns each come up with $2,000. If you're wondering who the six towns are, they're not necessarily contiguous, but they're pretty contiguous. They're Fayette, Wayne, Reedfield, Mount Vernon, Leeds, and Vienna. So just to kind of give you an overview of this very quickly, the phase one is to take a look at defining our local broadband needs and goals, to inventory existing broadband infrastructure, to do a gap analysis between the goals and the existing infrastructure, an assessment of municipal procedures, rules, and ordinances, to look at digital inclusion, and to draft and present that interim report. And the phase two is to actually take that material and determine statistics by town with a service level gap, create high-level designs to fill that gap, determine the capital costs for network design, research public and private partnership strategies, and to present us with a final report. And actually, phase two is kind of where the goods are delivered. That gives us some of the options. And the first part of the grant is basically all the study factors. Now, the way this works with the six partners is we always get our own reporting out of it. So it's not that these six partners are going to necessarily build the same thing. We'll all get our options and be able to look at them as towns. Now, that doesn't mean, for example, we might say there's a really good partnership that we could engage in with Mount Vernon, for example. So, we're committed at this point, if proceeding with phase one, with $2,000. And phase two is a $12,000 piece that, divided by six, would be $2,000 each. We probably can apply for another 50% grant for that, so it might be smaller, but the entire project is basically $4,000. If a town pulls out, and I don't know if that's a possibility, but I do know that Vienna has, for example, said this may be a stretch for them, the two steps. Then the project cost does decline slightly, but that's based on the number of households. So they only have 500 households. So our piece of that would rise by a factor that would be a little bit greater than that. 2,000 is just not going to be divided by 5 at that point. We'll have to subtract out the 500 houses and do it that way. About $5,000 is what we're looking at. My recommendation tonight, and I was going to move that we take this out of our contingency and, planning budget to go ahead and fund both of the phases. But I think what I'd like to do, if it is the pleasure of the board, is approve up to $3,000 for phase one. And then evaluate what we're getting from the consultant, and then do another look at it for phase two. Although I'm committed to looking at phase two later, because I think that's again where the real information is delivered. But I'd like to tell the consultant we're evaluating as we go along.
You are, yes.
Yeah. So, I expect it's going to cost us $2,000. Might cost us 23 or 25
Yeah, but
if
if
a
you
town
move up
pulls
to-
out. But so authorizing a little bit more just, doesn't mean we have to come back and say, we need another $491.16.
I have a question.
Please.
So if
And I will say, by the way, I'm formulating opinions as we go along with this
Okay.
quite rapidly.
I'm completely in support of this project, but in looking at what the issue is with Vienna, if they only have 500 households, which I'm assuming is a smaller amount than most of the other towns, then shouldn't we be apportioning our percentage based kind of on the breakdown of the houses in each community?
That's
and
not,
make
that's
it-
not what we did.
It's not what we did.
When we shook hands, we divided, we
Six
said,
towns,
we're,
six-
we're
Six
six
towns
towns,
divided by
six, yep.
six.
And, yeah, if we did the apportionment, our piece would go way up.
That's
Yeah.
not my concern. My
Right.
concern is more on the fairness side, because we stand to have a greater benefit also because we would have more people.
Right.
But, okay, so I was just curious.
What's the potential if we were to change that formula, and that horse has left the barn probably, but of losing other towns along the way if it were a per household fee?
I don't know.
It might.
I don't know,
end up
everybody
being-
came to the table with that as their agreement.
Okay.
And I'm happy with it. You know, if a town like Vienna pulls out, and I don't know that they will, they just said it was a heavier lift for them, basically.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so that prompted me to just ask the question, well, if a town does pull out, how do we come up with,
Right.
Make up the balance.
the fee?
Yeah.
And when does phase 2 start?
Well, phase 1 is to be delivered by the end of September. I like the consultant very much, but I don't know if he's going to hit his delivery target. I think he's being a little over-optimistic. So phase 2 would deliver by January 1st. So I'd like to see him deliver phase 1. That's why I'm suggesting we fund phase 1 and see how he handles that first target and what we get for material, and then proceed with authorizing phase 2 at that point. And my thinking on that is because if we end up, say we're discussing this and looking at this in the middle of November, well, we can apply for that grant on January 1st. And this is a fast answer grant. So we've already pulled the grant for the calendar year 2019 in. So we really can't reapply for that grant until 2020, but we could do that on January 1st. So at that point, if we were sitting and looking in November, I would say, well, let's just at least try for the grant again. Can everybody deal with that for 45 days? And see if we get it. Doesn't hurt. And that would lower our cost by $1,000.
And it's all contingent on whether or not we like the results of phase
Yeah,
one.
and I will say, the first phase is really going to be a big data dump. So it's really the second phase, it's the delivery, and I think everybody's committed to being in both phase 1 and 2, but I'm just looking at it as being able to evaluate as we go along. Yes, we could pull out, but I don't think we would have a lot of good deliverables if it was just phase 1.
We spent the money to get to phase 1.
Yeah,
It'd be
yeah.
kind of foolish to walk away at that point.
Right. I mean, I suppose there's a possibility that the phase 1 data, we feel we could do the analysis on it or something, but I don't really think so. I think the expertise is with Casco Bay Advisors. So with that, I would move that we spend up to $3,000 for phase 1 for the scope of work outlined in phase 1 of the Casco Bay Advisors grant broadband project.
I second that.
So it's been moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? So, I'll just say I've been reading a lot about fiber networks and so forth, and some of the things we can do with much faster broadband that really serves citizens and serves them well, especially things like aging in place and doing telemedicine and things of that nature that are going to be very important, I think, down the road. And I'm on a high horse with that. I'll tell
Oh,
you.
buddy, I'm all for it.
Yeah, so.
I work from home.
Yeah, come on.
You work from home.
And what are we, just so other people know, what are we looking at once we have phase 2 and then we just we have some options of how we could proceed. Are we looking
Right.
at this as being a 5-year project until we would have some implementation? Or is it 10 years, or is it more like 1 year?
Well, I think what it's going to do is going to yield, a lot of this gets down to what they call last mile delivery, and how you're going to handle that, and where you determine last mile. So somebody who might be down on a shore road on Lake Maranacook, you know, how are we going to deal with every citizen equitably if we want to do this project in a way that really boosts the entire town's ability to have not what we're seeing now, which is cable delivering us download speeds that allow us to download entertainment, but not to really do two-way communication with upload.
Right.
So we're talking about things that might be fiber, or might be perhaps wireless to some extent, that could be mounted on poles or towered around town. So there's a lot of different options. I have my prejudices for fiber, I'll say that up front, but
Yeah.
in any case, it would, there would be a menu of choices. And so at that point, I think we would be discussing what kind of time horizon is advantageous for this town. One of the things I've learned is most people who are in their 50s now are very, very comfortable with technology. They have adapted to it and work and so on and so forth. And so if they're going to age in place in our community and continue working from part-time to whatever, it's going to be telemedicine and things of that nature are going to be very important to us.
So we're not looking at this as being extremely long-term. We're going to keep if we're going to stay involved in this project, we're going to keep it moving and look for funding
Absolutely.
methods and
Absolutely.
keep it going.
Absolutely, I mean,
Okay.
and, you know, I mean, we may get to a point where things are happening on the national level that are advantageous to us. But I read today about, I spent some time today reading about two small towns, a rural district in Minnesota and North Carolina, small town. And actually, there's Otis, Massachusetts, which is in the Berkshires, really tiny town, that have built their own fiber systems. Financing gets really creative around doing that, but it can be done, and the advantages are huge,
Good.
so.
Did we
So I
vote
did
this in?
place a motion on the floor. It
Yes.
did get a second.
And there's
So
discussion.
the
We
motion
just
was
had our
up to
discussion.
$3,000 for phase one. I'm ready to take the vote. All in favor? Thank you. And so now I'm guilty of the more discussion in my 10 minutes, aren't I?
That's okay.
Try to
Okay,
keep-
good.
Try to keep your own comments concise.
We'll go on to discussing the possibility of a special town meeting to address changes in the land use ordinance pertaining to agriculture and marijuana cultivation. So I'm going to defer to Eric to set the stage for us on this, and anybody else who's been involved in it.
Thank you. And I will point out, because I think I saw somebody looking around for Kristen. She's actually out sick today.
Okay.
So usually she would be the one saying whether you voted or not. So I just wanted to point out for anybody
God, we helped ourselves.
that's watching that, she's out
So
sick
you're
today.
taking notes.
Well, will rely on the video, and I think Dennis has got some notes going too. So.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Extensive and detailed.
I
Say honest to God.
I'll start with apologies to our town law firm. When I went to the Management Institute, they had that fantastic session on marijuana policy. It's been changing every month, every couple months for the past, 2 or 3 years since this was first voted in through a referendum question. In June, we saw the most recent and some of the most substantial changes to the law. We were at the planning board meeting here talking with an applicant for a medical marijuana cultivation facility, and his lawyer was telling us what had happened the day before that really changed the whole outlook on the business operation. It was staggering for me to be in that position, as a municipal official, just having this stuff just come at you like that. But that's how it's been happening. Fits and starts, and the legislature has been making some pretty big changes to the rules, trying to, I think, do the best they can for the state of Maine, but in some cases leaving the municipalities with a little bit of shell shock and not always the information that we need to make good decisions. We seem to be past that point, and this presentation that was made at the Management Institute really did summarize the changes to recreational marijuana, medical marijuana, hemp, and some of the other things that are going on in a very good way. So I wanted to include that in the packet. It's a great resource. Anybody that has an interest in this issue in any aspect, I encourage you to take a look at this packet and the information that's included herein, because it is current, August 9th, and it really does summarize where we are, I think, and some of the major considerations for municipalities. So that's kind of the backdrop. We've had an application. It's been essentially deferred to the code enforcement officer to deal with as a building issue, because agriculture in the town of Reedfield is very permissive, is allowed in many zones, and the definition that we have fits the definition that was presented for this endeavor. It's an agricultural business involving a greenhouse or multiple greenhouses. That being said, it was something that we felt the need to look at and try to move forward with understanding and addressing town-wide, not because folks in town are opposed to this necessarily, the issue of marijuana. It's legal statewide, recreational use is legal. I don't believe the intent of the planning board or anybody necessarily is to outlaw or unduly restrict, but rather to provide reasonable regulation, much as we do with a lot of other issues that have potential nuisance factors, be it too much parking or light pollution or anything. So I did meet with the town attorney following that planning board meeting, and the chair of the planning board, as well as one of the representatives, one of the members of the planning board, and a representative from the select board, Dennis Price, to talk about what we could do, what we should do, what we needed to do to be prepared and to be fair in approaching this issue. So we talked about some potential ordinance changes that could help fill in some of those gaps that were left by the state of Maine in their planning and policy making around this. Right now, medical marijuana cultivation is broadly allowed and not subject to the same opt-in provisions that are required for recreational shops, for recreational growing, for testing facilities, for sales, whether it's medical or recreational sales. So there's a lot that's covered by what is considered to be, or what is called the opt-in provisions of the state law. The medical piece, specifically cultivation, wasn't addressed. And there are a few areas around where that's happened, but this is the one that's most substantial. And I think, obviously, with this application we had, it brought it all into focus for us. So we did talk about that, and we started looking at some potential ordinance revisions that could help clarify for our residents what is allowed, where it's allowed, and how we might look at managing some of the nuisance factors that may arise, at least initially, with medical marijuana cultivation, but also more broadly with marijuana cultivation, as that becomes something that we consider in the town. That's really where
And more broadly, other cultivation.
and other cultivation as well. One of the things, and that's a good caveat, a good segue into the discussion that we had, did focus on how very open our agricultural provisions are. Last year or 2 years ago, I can't remember which, I think it was 2 years ago, we made changes to the land use ordinance to address light agriculture, which is really what you would consider agriculture associated with home-based businesses. However, we have the other side of this, which is intensive agriculture, that we have not addressed, and really could include any business that has a lot of footprint, a lot of impacts, and a lot of workers, a lot of buildings, and greenhouses are one of those. So right now, our agricultural provisions include greenhouses. And so the suggestion was made that we would try to look at separating out more intensive agricultural uses into a category for intensive agriculture, which would apply to somebody growing tomatoes or perhaps somebody growing marijuana, whether it's recreational or otherwise, or medical. So kind of a bifurcated approach, looking at addressing agriculture broadly and making sure that we are, as you noted, Bruce, meeting the needs broadly of any type of agricultural use, but also addressing medical marijuana specifically. So there are some discussions being had around special site plan review for marijuana growing facilities. And there's a lot to this, so I don't want to get into all the details or what specifically we were considering. But what I do want to present is a background, some of the summary information, and then what we need to do about that would be to have a special town meeting, potentially, to put these changes into effect.
So the steps now, right now, this is in front of the code enforcement,
The
or the
The
application?
one application we have is, and that's basically been put through. The building was approved. It's for 2 greenhouses and an outbuilding, I believe, and no more. So that was one of the concerns that was raised at the planning board meeting, was they were talking about 8 greenhouses and thousands of square feet of covered surface. That's not what they're doing right now. That's not what's been approved.
But somebody could make an
Somebody
application.
could make an application.
Not
for that.
talking about this specific location, at any other location in town for 10 greenhouses,
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
That would be possible right now.
okay? Or at this location as an expansion.
Yep.
So that's what that's the intense agriculture that you're talking about.
That's right, and so that,
And-
that piece is taken care of through the code right now.
Isn't there a co-op portion of this?
There is, and the
is-
state made an effort to restrict what they considered cooperative growing in a certain capacity. You're not allowed to share the same space and the same employees, for example. You can't pool licenses and have one person or 2 people managing 12 licenses. But pretty much every other cooperative aspect is permissible. You can share utilities, you can share space as long as it's partitioned. So it really is enabling this type of cooperative cultivation of medical marijuana. And this is happening in lots of other places in the state of Maine where folks are getting together because cooperatives make sense.
Yep.
So
It just happens to be
a
this
different,
agriculture.
exactly, yeah. So
So by this, I just wanted to be clear, you mean this particular application has a cooperative piece to it? Or are we talking about the ordinance?
I only know that that has been talked about. I don't believe that's in the application, is it?
it's mentioned in the application, and the intent, I think, is there. It's part of the business
Right.
model, as far as I understand it.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that every medical marijuana cultivation facility would have that same model. This was a situation where we had, I think, a really good value piece of property that was out of the way on a private road that has a gate at the front of it. If you're going to be growing something that has a potential for, if you want to keep a lower profile, it's a good place to do it. And I think that was acknowledged.
Can I ask a question just to
Sure.
discuss this in public? Let's say I play the role of a town member who says, you know what, they passed a law in 2016. You know, what took so long to just now, this application? Why are we doing this now? What did it, and of course, I want to make it official, but my response has always been, we didn't have any rules to be able to sort of talk about. But with this being medical, it does make it different. So can you tell me a little bit, like, why is this just now becoming a thing?
Yeah, well, I think you sat and spike on the state rules.
Yeah.
We just have rules in place, literally, for a lot of this in June. And they're going to be changed again. There's
But
going
that's
to be
adult
more.
use, right?
That is
This
adult
a
use.
But this is a medicinal
Well,
facility.
there were changes made to the medical
Yes.
piece,
Yep.
expanding the number of patients from 5 to unlimited. That happened in June.
Yeah.
The ability for them to sell wholesale up to 75% of their product happened in June. That wasn't the case before. So this is there was a
There
watershed
was an
moment.
additional body of law
Yeah.
that
or
enabled
rulemaking
this,
that
that-
came into place.
and made it much more possible. And the folks in the know were in the know, and that's the people that
And it was sit and wait was kind of the best. So I
Exactly,
guess I'm
yes,
just making sure
yeah.
to reinforce the position that we are doing this now because there was no really precedent of what we had to do. And even if we were on the cutting edge and made our rules, they have changed so often we would have to revisit them anyway.
Absolutely, and to that point, the one thing that towns have done that we didn't do was install a moratorium. And that's something that I think that we want to talk about a little bit tonight, but not necessarily extensively, unless we find ourselves in a position where we think that that's the best option. But typically moratorium, they're not always the best approach because it can be limiting, but it's something to consider anyway, in any event. So thanks, Dennis, that's a good point and a very
thank
good,
you. I just wanna make sure
very good
everybody
point
gets it.
about that. Any more questions broadly about the
Yeah.
background?
It sounds to me like this continues to be a moving target across all the components as far as the state oversight is concerned. What do you think might happen in the next session, given the fact that medical marijuana appears to be operating in an unregulated vacuum right now?
Well, I wouldn't say it's
Is there a sen-
unregulated,
is there-
but
Is there a
yeah.
sentiment to maybe address shortcomings that,
I'm kind of getting the message that there isn't.
Yeah, no, I was gonna agree with that, what Bruce said. It's, they've done basically what they're gonna done, what they're
They
going to do.
legalized
Yeah.
marijuana
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
recreational use. They did they did a lot of rulemaking around that. It took a couple years.
Yep.
And they added some rulemaking on medicinal use. And I think the legislature believes they're done, they're moving on.
I agree.
That doesn't mean tomorrow somebody won't.
Right,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
And there will be,
because
that
there has
stuff.
been no big hue and cry from MMA saying, hey, you've left us high and dry on this particular component, you need to go back to do some more on it.
No, and
That hasn't happened.
it hasn't happened, and I think in large part because every community is addressing this differently. Every community has a different approach. I mean, it is amazing, the diversity of responses to this. Some towns put in moratorium 2 years ago. Some towns legalized it 2 years ago. It's one of those things where everybody has a different approach. And I think that, to Dennis's point, we are where we are, and now we're looking at how to respond, given the fact that things really finally do appear to have settled out as of June. That really was, I think, a tipping point for us, a tipping point for anybody that might be interested in getting into that business. So here we are.
So
and
that's what I'm thinking is,
Yeah.
we're planning to address things pursuant to the June state rules, and that's what we need to do.
Right, we
Yes.
finalized them in June, we have something, and maybe I'm oversimplifying, but so tell me to shut up, but we got the finalized rules in June. We will, if we are able to do this on the warrant, it will cover not only medicinal cannabis, it will cover adult use cannabis, and it will not regulate, but basically establish a list of rules that, that maintain that separation and are best practice for Reed Field.
I guess I'll say it could.
Could be.
It could be, the scope could be, and originally was intended to be, simply
more
addressing
narrow
the medical marijuana growing gap
Agricultural.
Yeah.
for agricultural, and the broad description of intensive agriculture, which really is an opening. So that was the original intent. However, it could be that we look more broadly at other areas of the marijuana cannabis industry, including the option of opting in to any number of those other areas that have been made possible by the state at the local level.
So aside from that medical marijuana component where we basically don't have a lot to say outside of code enforcement for buildings. Could you, by de facto, not having an opt-in discussion, you could have a moratorium as long as you want on the rest of it. If you don't opt in, the rest of it, the point's
Absolutely,
moot.
absolutely.
Yeah, exactly right. It basically, adult use cannabis comes down to the opt-in, and that has to be a choice. It's, of course, this is how it worked. It's the exact opposite. Like I said in here, it basically was,
So-
it used to be you assumed in until you opted out, but now you're assumed out until you opt in.
Right,
So
but the
before we
the
decide to
opt-in
opt
is,
in,
right.
it's probably very important to gauge public sentiment to see whether or not they want to do it.
Absolutely.
And if the prevailing sentiment is, we don't like this, then we just don't opt in, and we only have one segment of the entire umbrella of state statute that we're going to have to deal with on an ongoing
Yeah.
basis.
I just want to be very clear, though, we're not talking about adult use. We're talking about, because adult use is legal
We're talking
throughout the
about
state.
recreational growing,
We're talking
selling-
about the
Agriculture.
business aspect
Yes.
of providing
That's right.
for recreational product.
Absolutely, and that's very key here, when you talk about the opt-in.
Yes, yeah.
You're opting into a menu, if you will, of the business aspects of it.
Right.
Everybody is allowed X number of plants that they can grow right in there,
Right.
next to
Yeah,
their
so many
sunflowers
mature,
or
so many
whatever.
immature.
Right now.
Yep,
Yeah.
and they
With
can,
no issue.
yep, and they can use it recreationally. And that's all fine and well, that's what the law is in the state of Maine. So, I'm much more, and I'm speaking now of opinion, so we're trying to give feedback to Eric, or ourselves, I guess, and that is, I see us dealing with this agricultural piece and the medicinal as a separate
Standalone.
item, standalone, and that there isn't anything to prevent us from taking a look at that other opt-in pieces, but, I don't really want to have a marijuana ordinance. I want to have our rules address intensive agriculture, and then if we want to look at what we want to opt into, or, they could be parallel.
Yeah.
Then we
I
do
think
that.
we have to, I would agree with that. I concur. If we want to separate this in terms of agriculture, intensive and light, and just make sure that I guess to me is, we always talk about in teaching, is that it's consistent. And so it has to be consistent across the board for all things that we grow.
Absolutely.
I understand that. I think the opt-in discussion has to start. I think we have to find out a way that if that's not on the coming town
Right.
meeting that's coming or something like that, but I think as a goal that we have ongoing concerns about this on the select board goals, I think we should start that.
Yep,
Two things, I want to address that, but first I want to go back to this particular application. I have not been to any of the meetings, so I don't know more than what I've heard discussed. We discussed it a little bit at our workshop, and I've read all of this, but the actual plan the actual application that has been approved is for 2 greenhouses and an outbuilding. But initially, I thought there was a component of having up to a larger number, and if there was 75% could be sold wholesale or up to, then the rest could be sold retail, and that they were looking at having a retail establishment on the same site, and that would have traffic.
First part's right, the second part is a little bit off.
Okay.
They would be able to wholesale to other businesses. So for example, we have the medical facilities, the Green Mile in Manchester. And so they need product to process and make into cookies and sell. And, they need product. So the medical cultivators can wholesale to medical, but not recreational. They can wholesale to medical storefronts.
And really, that's all those are right now. The Green Mile
right,
is
yeah.
medicinal
Only,
shops
yep.
only. You can
Yep.
only get in if you have your
Yeah,
card.
you have the
Except
magic
for
card.
things that aren't actual marijuana.
Right,
So
CBD
CBD
you
is
can get
separate.
anywhere.
That's a
Yeah,
whole,
yeah.
I don't even want to talk about that tonight.
Yeah, no, yeah, let's not get, yeah. Wish I had.
But that's part of the Green Mile, and anyone in the public can go in without a
Oh,
card
yeah.
to buy
You
those
get that at
products.
JNS Oil, they sell CBD oil.
Yeah, gas and grass.
just to interrupt,
Sorry, yeah.
I'll take a motion to extend the meeting until 8:15.
Second?
I'll make the motion
she's making a motion, you're seconding, all in favor? Thank you, okay,
Sorry.
continue with our discussion,
Okay,
please.
so, because the only thing I heard in the previous application that I had a concern with was that there would be increased traffic on this private road that's gated, that is a dirt road. The proximity is obviously more than 500 feet away from the school, which was another concern I had, but in reading through all of these
Yeah.
rules, I found that that's the measurement.
Yeah.
Is there still, on that application, is there a piece where we're concerned about traffic?
Absolutely. And that is something that we have looked at and can address, I believe, under existing land use ordinance provisions, because as a caregiver, they are providing a service. Service businesses do have restrictions in that zone, and if there is a retail component or even a component of a caregiver providing medicine to patients, that is an area that we could address excessive traffic under those types of provisions. That's a little bit gray. So it would take a little bit of work on our part to understand and fully be able to reasonably and fairly enforce some of that.
So you might technically be able to restrict hours of operation for that particular component of,
Yeah, and it could also trigger site plan review
Yeah.
potentially if that's a big part of the business. It really wasn't clear in their application
What they wanted
how
to
it was all going to shake out. I mean, there's a chance they could grow what they need to grow, off-sell 75% of it, and then dispose of the rest without even actually potentially serving any clients, because 75% of it can go out the door, and 25%, it's up to 75% can go to wholesale. So I don't know what their business
And
model
then the other
is.
25% can go to their own client list.
Exactly, or it could be that they don't wholesale any, and 100% goes to their client list,
Right.
and that's an absolute non-starter as far as that district goes, I think, if that was the case. So we definitely need to work with them to better understand their business model and really kind of play it by ear with this initial application, but we do have tools in place that we can utilize to manage at least the potential issue of traffic.
Okay,
So-
and so for me, that separates this into two different things. If we're going to look at having a meeting and having an ordinance for intensive agriculture, would that, in general, regardless of what is being grown, have these traffic issues because it's intensive? Or is it a function of the fact that it's marijuana that has a caregiver component that is causing the traffic?
It's the idea, oh, I'm sorry. you
No, go
already-
ahead, Dennis. I
The
think you
idea
got it. We
is
got the
that it
same
is in
idea, yeah.
fact the agriculture, and one of the
It's
reasons.
the use.
It's the use, and so, for example, you come to Price Berry Farm, and not only do I grow the berries, but I make my own jams, I make my own pies, I have my own store on site, I have all this stuff. That is intensive agriculture. So no matter what you're growing, if what you are running is not only, basically, especially in any business, you have to start with whatever the plant gives you. Right, so that's the way, and especially in agriculture, whatever your plant gives you, then whatever you branch off into making. So I guess my point is, it doesn't matter what it is. It's not whether or not it's if people come in and out. If what you're creating is a store and you're going basically, let's say, as they say in the furniture business, stump to rump, you're all the way through. Right, and so to me, that's what the intensive agriculture is.
Yeah, and
That
that-
we use the tomato farms.
Yeah.
Right, backyard farms is an example of. You can go there and get them, and they also wholesale them, and that's intensive agriculture.
And I want to make sure that I say I agree with that. However, I think we do need to recognize what the plant is from the standpoint of what the nature is of the growing of it. So for example, with backyard farms, okay, I happen to have a friend up there who owns a business that's 12 miles away who is bothered by the lighting
Right.
at night. So, because they've used an intensive agriculture model for tomatoes, okay, you could substitute a different word in there.
Right.
That requires lighting that when Madison did their rulemaking or however they allowed it, they failed to address that particular piece.
Yeah.
So that's standing there and occurring. So we do need to recognize what the methodology is of the grower. And some of that does go into some secondary things. For example, we do know that there may be security issues that would be different than a tomato farm. You know.
And I agree with that.
Yeah.
By state statute, that sort of thing is already covered. So would that be something that we would need to have our own, or would we have to have,
That's a very good question.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Echo
I
the
would
state
also.
statute in your regulation.
Right, and so I guess yes, I absolutely, but you have to think the same thing. Maple syrup is quite valuable.
Yeah.
And it's so I think I want to avoid paying a lot of attention to what it is that is being grown. If we, you know what I mean, it has to be, to me, it's agriculture, it's agriculture.
Well, and that
that's
speaks
what
to
it is.
the issue of fairness and equity and
Right.
consistency.
Yep.
So,
But it is methodology.
Absolutely.
growth that-
Yeah, absolutely,
that comes
and
into it.
Yeah.
the other thing, one of the biggest things, especially with these sorts of situations, and it's a fact, it smells.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so what I think we have to do is, from a very basic standpoint, no matter what you're growing, you're going to use some fertilizer, blah, blah, blah. But we have to make sure that in this particular location and how things go to site review and make sure that the
Yep.
process is followed. I feel very confident in this course of action.
So what kind of step forward do we want to take at this point? I think that's,
Yeah, that's
we're
the,
dancing
yeah,
around.
great, yeah.
Yeah.
So, so we have a couple different options, and I'll start off by saying that originally I'd gone into this thinking that we could potentially do a special town meeting in November that would, we could just do an on-floor town meeting at the same time we're doing the voting for the state ballot measures, and take care of that easy peasy, no problem. But that likely isn't a scenario we can manage, in large part because the state ballot is a secret ballot. It is a bubble sheet. And because of the nature of the question being an ordinance change, a yes or no, we could do a bubble sheet, but that has a much more extensive time frame. Basically 2-month lead time.
Well, you could do a hand count on that, if
Well,
it's a yes or no.
you could, but state
We
law.
do that with the school.
We do, but it's a little bit different. And I was talking to the clerk
Okay, go
today.
ahead.
The overlap between having the state 8-to-8 ballot and us having a meeting that's open at the same time without really the opportunity for discussion. It's that lack of opportunity for discussion that would make it conflict, I think, with.
I don't understand that, because I don't understand why we couldn't hold a public informational session and a public hearing in advance and then just present a yes/no ordinance.
Well, I guess it's, to me, and I'm looking at, it was something referenced in.
As a matter of fact, I don't
Yeah.
understand, we could do that January 15th if we wanted to.
We could, and actually that would be the easiest thing. So what I'm suggesting is that
Having it at the same time, I think you're.
having it at the same
Having
time.
the polls open and having an
Yeah.
open meeting.
I'm saying, no, don't have an open
At the
meeting.
same time,
I'm saying don't have the open meeting on that date.
okay.
Have
A different-
an informational meeting and a public hearing. That's what we do with our regular warrant articles, is we have a public hearing and we have a meeting where people can make recommendations. Sort of a two-step process. We can do that again for this.
we could.
So we could have our special
And that's
town
what
meeting.
people are used to.
We can have that on any date. It doesn't
We
have to
can, yeah.
coincide with the November.
My
voting.
suggestion is that we do step away from that date, because it does get confusing, and, we're not really not supposed to, and it's not been tested, but have open meeting and closed meeting at the same time. the trouble, and I think you're suggesting doing something different.
I am suggesting
Yeah,
something completely different.
So the, having a secret ballot meeting at a separate time, which I think is closer to what you're suggesting, having a standard referendum
I mean, I
discussion.
would love to have
and,
the secret ballot on the November date, simply because it's available and, you know, people will be going to the polls on state bonds, so it creates the ability for the better turnout.
So we could do that, except for the fact that the
But don't-
secret ballot process backs us up 2 months, and I
Okay.
don't believe that we will have planning board review and hearing and
Okay.
all of that before then.
Then that's fine, so that
that's
brings
where
us
we're-
to a January date or something like that.
Yeah, and that's
So
what I
now
was-
I understand
yes,
that
yeah.
logistically.
Okay.
Fine.
We don't want to dilly-dally here, right?
Right.
We want to get
No,
this.
so a couple options are to do a secret ballot vote sometime in January, February. That would be perfectly fine, and I think reasonable timeframe wise. We could also look at carrying it forward to June, if there was an appetite for that.
Let's also ask what's reasonably appropriate for the existing applicant and any other applicant, other applications could come forward. So, I mean,
They could, yes,
I don't
yeah.
want us to, I don't want us to be in the position we're running out the clock on you.
No,
when you have a
absolutely
business
not.
plan.
Yeah, no,
I
and
mean, that's just, whether you are for this or against it, one of the watchwords you've been using is fair and process. And so
Consistent.
consistent, and so I want to make sure we do that.
And that's one reason why I don't think a moratorium is the right solution.
Yes.
Because it would be
A
limiting to this
moratorium kind of
application.
says, we don't like what you're doing, and so we're putting this in place so we can
We're
figure
not
it
sure what
out.
we're gonna do, but.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
many
you're not
communities
doing
take that
anything.
approach.
But we
of,
can,
yeah.
no, we can take, I think we can operationally time this out in such a way that we can put together a schedule of the pieces that need to happen.
Yeah.
We're talking about the intensive agriculture
Right.
ordinance.
Yeah.
Right, we're not talking about the marijuana.
Yeah.
The opt-in.
The opt-in
Yeah,
pieces.
yeah.
That could go on the June ballot, for example.
And
Yes.
why
Yeah.
can't,
I think that's a great idea.
I just need to hear out loud why we can't do this sooner than January?
So, the state of Maine does not allow us to have open town meeting and secret ballot voting at the same time.
Well, why couldn't we do it in October?
Do what in October?
Have a,
Oh,
I don't
I'm
even know why
asking why the
I don't
town-
even know why we're talking about having an open town meeting.
okay.
A floor,
I-
that's
so
what I'm
yeah,
asking.
that's an
Okay,
option,
so
yeah.
if we're going to have a new ordinance, or a revision to the land use ordinance,
Yep.
where we address intensive agriculture uses,
Mm-hmm.
we need to have something come forward from the planning board, and actually,
Mm-hmm.
they'll hold the public hearing if it's a change to the land use
Yes.
ordinance. And we won't. So they would have an informational meeting, they would have a public hearing, and then it would come to the select board to issue the actual,
Warrant article,
Warrant
and then we
article.
would have a hearing on that.
Yep.
and we would have a hearing. And so if we've already met with the legal team, no, that's wrong. If you had a fact-finding kind of mission with one of the lawyers for the town and the planning board and yourself and a select board member, how much farther do we need to take this to have this intensive agricultural use come forward? I'm just curious why we're going from November to January to maybe June. If this is something we want to address, why not address it and let's get it done?
Well, aren't
Well, I
there
think-
days that you
Yeah, I
have to?
think, and I just want to make, because I feel like I think Eric just said that because we can't do it in November, because because it's going to be by secret ballot, and there's a 2-month
Yes.
lead time.
Generally.
So
And-
November,
yeah.
that goes to October, October goes to September. September's in like 2
2
weeks.
weeks.
So all of the planning board review, all of that stuff would happen in like
2 weeks.
2 weeks, 3 weeks, and that's with everyone's
Yeah,
schedule.
yeah.
I guess the point is, it's unrealistic. The timeline to get it on the November ballot is unrealistic.
Well, now, and we're talking about having a machine ballot. Is that correct for the 2 months?
Yes, well, I mean, it could be machine or it could be a hand count, and that's the, to the school referendum question. It
Right.
could be a hand count.
But it's still 2
Of-
months.
Of a written yes, no.
Yeah.
It's not 2
vote.
months then.
Well, so Dennis is absolutely right, that
What
it's
is-
the
what is-
schedule.
What
That's
is
the
the,
issue.
what is, okay, so,
Is it because of absentee balloting?
It's because of absentee balloting,
Okay.
it's because of that burdensome and cumbersome process of running a secret ballot election that pushes it back so far.
Okay.
It's why we have to have the budget process finished up in February for a meeting in June.
so
That's
it comes
what I
down
wanted
to
to
the
know.
proper notices
Yeah.
and so forth. So I'm fine with that.
Yep.
Okay? I would say, at this point, I would ask you to take a look at the November ballot, make your actual dates backing out so we know what that is, okay? And that may just create the whole thing as moot. But I think we
Yeah.
should do the exercise, and then I would take that starting point and go forward and see what date that hits. And
Yeah.
obviously, we wouldn't do it on December 25th.
The
Yeah.
Well, I think
problem
it
is that the
comes,
planning
it's the
board has
planning
to do
board.
their part.
That's
That's
absolutely
right,
right,
but
yeah.
that's what I'm asking Eric to do, is to talk with the planning board, how long will you need? And what's the next step legally of how many days' notice we have to give and how many days we have to have absentee ballots available?
It helps us
And then-
triangulate the
Right,
actual
right,
dates.
so-
Yeah,
so
I
we
get
can-
you. I'm
yeah,
with you, buddy,
yeah.
I'm with you, that makes more
But
sense.
I mean, I would just-
it was funny because it was like, wait. it was
See
like,
what, see where the
same
pathway
time.
takes us.
Absolutely.
I assume we're not asking the planning board to recreate the wheel. I'm assuming there are intensive agricultural districts set up in many towns.
There are, and our attorney offered some good suggestions for basic parameters. We're looking at things like setbacks, footprints, that type of thing. So they won't be reinventing the wheel, and we do have a planning board meeting scheduled for Wednesday. I'm not sure they're going to have it. The planning board hasn't been able to meet regularly through the summer. So that's one reason why I'm really hesitant to put a time frame on this. Is I can say to your question, Bruce, or your suggestion of working backwards, that with a secret ballot process, there's no way we would meet the November timeframe.
Okay,
I will
I'll
and
take that
can-
answer now.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll just tell you now.
Okay.
That I can and will work forward and find out, once we have a more stable understanding of where the planning board is and where they anticipate landing, we can work out from that, and I can tell you exactly what the earliest deadline or earliest date would be, and how to get there with the action required by the select board and by the planning board for their
And I would do
hearings.
that unless the rest of the board is in disagreement with me, and unless you're recommending differently. I personally prefer that we use the exact same model we use for the budget process. And that is that we have a meeting to basically hear the warrant and let people express their yes or no on it. They've already done that with the planning board, yes, but it's a broader and second, if you will, opportunity.
Yep, absolutely.
And then that we go to a secret ballot.
And I guess I'm probably not gonna make any friends here, but if this is an important enough issue that we're looking at having an additional town meeting by secret ballot, then I think it's something the planning board needs to be able to meet regularly to deal with and not have meetings canceled because people can't make it. Or we just let it roll into the normal process and be part of the June meeting. But I know there have been some issues over time where the planning board can't pull together enough membership to have meetings, and people who have applications in are disappointed. And I think now we would be the ones who would be disappointed because we're the ones asking for this to become an ordinance that we can put out to the public. So I think we need to have a commitment, or we need to provide direction to the planning board that, yes, you can choose a date, but if it's going to be April, then we'll just do it in June. If we want this to happen sooner, then we need to say,
Correct.
Yeah, I see exactly what
Yeah,
you're saying.
Yeah, and I mean, I echo that sense. However, my thinking is probably the planning board can do the due diligence work on this in probably 1 or 2 meetings. I mean, in terms of actually deciding what their ordinance would look like, their ordinance changes to the land use ordinance, because that's what we're talking about.
That's
We're
right.
actually not talking about a new ordinance, we're talking
Yeah,
about
Absolutely right. Just for
amendments
this.
to the land use.
Lieu of-
Yeah.
So then we can, I mean, I would think they'd be able to wrap that up.
I think
in
they
a
could
meeting
wrap
or
it up,
two, yeah.
probably by the end of October, with the review and meeting and all that, because they do meet, scheduled to meet twice a month. And so I think that that's a reasonable estimate. But again, I don't know until we get into it, and, so I hear what you're saying about moving this along, and also about backing it up, and I mean, I would say that December or January would be quite likely, and really a fair landing point, about 6 months in between town
Yep.
meetings.
That sounds
So,
good to me.
December's a tough month, so, probably January.
Do we have
but-
enough discussion on this to
Yep.
conclude it?
Yep,
Yes.
thank you.
I
And
need
we're
to
not
make
going to
a
do,
motion to extend the meeting for another up to 10 minutes.
I second that.
been moved and seconded for 10 minutes addition. We're all on
Sorry to
on board
interrupt,
with that.
but
No, that's good,
time's
thank you.
ticking.
You're the official timekeeper, aren't you?
Yeah, you let him get away with stuff tonight. Gee whiz.
Unless I'm the one called.
No, I said, we said 8:15 before.
We did.
So now we're on to 2016.
Did we need any official motion to our last thing?
I don't think we did. I think it was really to give direction in terms of how we wanted to look at this.
Yeah, it was a
and
great
to
discussion.
allow
Thank
everybody
you.
to give their 2 cents.
great.
And you're going to have more opportunity to address this.
Give your 2 cents.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We
This
got
will-
plenty of pennies.
Yep. So we're going to consider a catering permit for Robert Laster for an event at the Union Meeting House. And this is really, I'm going to kind of term it in quotes, a reapplication, because
Right.
he's run, 2 events there now?
Yep.
2 or 3.
And have there been any issues with them?
None.
Okay, so
I
none,
would
so
like to make a motion, may I
Yep.
do that?
please do.
To approve a catering permit application to Robert Laster of Crostini Catering for an event at the Reedfield Union Meeting House on August 13th from 6 to 9 PM with all conditions as are in the application.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. I will say that there was not a diagram in this one, and I'm assuming the same area is the plan as the previous ones.
Yeah, the same, they've got a
And I would ask
tent.
him to note that in the future, to refer to the prior. He doesn't need to really do I think,
Diagram.
the diagram itself, but to refer to the prior application.
Yes.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to approve this catering permit, which is permitting alcoholic beverage service. All in favor? Thank you. And so now we're going to move on to approving or setting the select board meeting schedule for the coming months. And we already did kind of do that for September and I think October. So I believe your intent was to talk about the budget and warrant process schedule.
I don't think
A little bit of
October's-
both.
No, we just
think
did
we did
October
October.
hasn't been
No.
posted.
Oh, October.
Yeah.
So we don't have anything else
Passed now.
past September is the
16th.
16th.
Yep, so I had missed a page in the packet, so that was included as an addendum. That is available here. I think you've all picked up a copy of it. Showing a
Hey,
proposed schedule.
Can I have a 30-second timeout real quick? 30 seconds. I will not be here on September 16th.
And you will not.
And I will
be.
not be here.
Bruce Solito will not be here.
So in order to have a quorum, the 3 of you need to make it.
That's okay.
Ralph, where are you going?
Where else am I going? I got nowhere to go.
And all
It's so sad, I'm telling
But if
beautiful
it's,
thing.
if
It
it's
is so
useful,
sad.
we can meet on a different day.
I will be available on the 9th or the 23rd. The 30th is Rosh Hashanah, and I don't want to mess with that.
Is the 23rd better for you?
No.
No.
Oh,
Okay.
you're gone too, right? Oh,
Yeah.
you're gone.
But at least then there would be 4 of us here.
Yeah.
Would the 23rd work? Or is
That
that
gets
too far?
pretty late in the month. We're trying to do bid openings and things for contract work, so I would.
Early
That
is
would be
okay?
6 weeks.
The 9th.
Yeah.
How about the 9th then?
Is
It's
that
a
too
sure
early?
I don't think so. The 9th could work. Yeah.
And that takes us, that's 1, 2, 3,
That's only 4
4
weeks.
weeks. That's a month away. Everybody good? I appreciate you making that change based on Bruce and I's inability to be here.
Anything for you, big guy?
Man,
So
get a
now
big
we're the
calendar there,
9th,
you know?
September
I like-
9th.
September 9th.
Yeah, September 9th.
You're gonna have Deb change the calendar?
Yes, we'll get all these changes posted and anything forward.
And so then we
yeah.
go into October. When is the October?
And do you know when the warrant dates are? It's not important, but it's convenient, maybe?
Well, so, yeah, I do, I don't have it with me. Basically,
I can do it from here.
next Monday would be the a warrant date.
Okay, and
so
then it's every 2 weeks?
Every 2 weeks from there, yeah.
2, 1, 2, 1, 2. I'm marking them in, so I'll just know it.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
guys pick whatever dates you want.
So I did throw out a potential October date of October 15th. I'm not sure how that works for people, but.
Something's going on the
so-
15th. What
Yeah,
is
I
it?
will not be there for that either.
Let's see, because
Because
it's
it's a
Columbus
Tuesday,
Day on
it's a
the
Tuesday.
Monday.
I have Mondays off.
Yeah,
Oh, is it
And it's the month of
Tuesday?
October.
That's Columbus
yeah.
Day weekend, I
15th
believe.
is
Columbus Day
Tuesday.
weekend.
Yeah.
Because it's Indigenous Peoples' Day before that.
That's right, Indigenous Peoples' Day. Thank you, Dennis.
I like to use
Yeah.
such positive language. Okay, so so I have Mondays off,
For Columbus.
yeah. Oh,
It's both.
yeah. Whatever
So
you
you
like.
can,
If you like
you're not
movers
gonna
and
be here the
breakers, it could be
15th. Are we
Columbus.
gonna,
I will not be available on the 15th either.
Oh, Bruce
I had-
and
no, I-
Dennis, we are not in
I have a
cahoots.
standing.
What do you guys
It
do?
may
What
seem,
are
it
you
may
guys
seem like
doing?
we're in
The
cahoots.
second
we are
Tuesday
not in
of every month, I
cahoots.
have a different board meeting. and I have to do
Okay,
that.
so how about Monday, the 7th? That would be 4 weeks.
That would be great, yeah.
Monday, the
The
7th?
7th.
October 7th?
Monday,
Monday,
October 7th?
October 7th.
Okay.
All right.
And we don't need one in between? We're still okay then?
Well, I think one of the things we may want to look at is when we take a look at adopting our goals, I think there are a couple of goals in there that may bring about workshop sessions. We don't need to decide those necessarily tonight, but I think some of them, so for example, we could be ready to do a workshop on the 21st.
Okay.
Right. And after the 7th, are we going every 2 weeks? Is that the plan? So the
Not
21st
yet.
would then?
No,
okay,
not yet.
Okay.
No.
I
We
mean,
would
we
add
might
a
be,
work,
but-
we would add a workshop perhaps, but
Okay.
then I think in November, we're.
We have
that's-
one in November, one in December. December is a horrible month. We've had to cancel meetings in the past. It's just busy. So I think December definitely is a one-meeting month.
November is what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
So Bruce, are you saying want to meet on the 21st and do a workshop? That would be the
No,
purpose?
I'm not saying that. I'm
Okay.
saying, as we look at our goals, it may become apparent that
Yeah.
we want to work on one of the goals through a workshop.
Okay.
So, for example, we had some governance documents that we were looking at, and
Uh-huh.
a couple other goals that,
Gotcha.
in workshop mode, it would allow us to just
Yeah.
get
Should
some
we
public.
set aside the 21st at all?
Yeah, let's go ahead and just,
I will reserve
let's
that
note that as
JIC.
a possible workshop.
Yeah, JIC.
Select board question mark. Okay.
Workshop, question mark, question mark.
Just so you know, you haven't hit any warrants, so you will just have to come in every
Right.
opposite Monday to make a signature.
And we wouldn't do any voting or motions on a workshop
Right.
anyhow.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
Okay.
then we start looking at
November.
November, and we don't have dates in November on the budget warrant process.
No, budget really
Once you
doesn't
enter the
start-
new year,
yeah.
you have your dates, kind of.
That's right, yeah, the budget
Yeah.
process really doesn't start until January in, as far as budget committee meetings
Right,
proper.
right. Okay,
So I'll tell you, we could go the 7th at 1, 2, 3, that would be the 4th of November, which would be 2 weeks after the possible workshop time on the 21st.
Is that too early in the month, Eric?
The 4th is early, yeah. The
It-
next
it-
Monday is Veterans Day, the
Yeah.
18th would be the next open Monday. Sorry to interrupt.
If we
Yeah,
didn't,
no,
oh,
go
you
ahead.
can't do it Tuesday.
I can in November, the show will be, yeah, the show will be open by that time.
Because if the town office is closed for veterans, we could have it Tuesday.
Yeah, the 12th, we could do that.
Yeah, that was
Again, I'll have a
recommended.
standing.
Oh,
second
Yeah, it's the
Tuesday.
Tuesdays, yeah,
Yeah.
Tuesday.
No,
yeah,
it's the second Tuesday of the month.
Okay,
That
gotcha,
kills
gotcha,
me.
gotcha.
I would think the 4th would probably be the most appropriate rather
Okay.
than later, so
Let's do the
let's
4th.
try the 4th.
4th,
Yep.
November 4th.
Again, we could add a workshop meeting
the
later that
18th?
month, but
Yeah.
let's just,
So let's leave the 18th as a
an
possibility,
18th
is a
for
question
a
mark,
question mark.
Yep.
okay? And then the next week is Thanksgiving week, because it's late.
And then we usually try to get December off early because that is usually a challenging month to schedule, right?
Yeah.
23rd, people will, yeah, that'll probably be the only day we're open. Will you be open half a day on Christmas Eve?
Yeah, yeah, the
I think
23rd
we
is that
usually do a
Monday.
half day, yeah.
So we need to meet the 2nd, 9th, or 16th.
I recommended the 9th, and
Yes, my
I
lord.
think that would work
Yeah, let's do
great.
that.
December 9th.
Yeah.
That's
Mr.
5
Scrooge.
weeks.
That's actually less, because it could be up to 5, yes.
Select board
Yes.
meetings officially is set for the 9th,
Good.
the 7th of
Okay.
October. That's the 9th of September, the 7th of October, the 4th of November, and December 9th. And potential workshops are available dates would be October 21st and November 18th.
Yeah.
I think
you.
that's very useful to the public to be able to plan ahead for,
And we could throw in a public hearing on intensive agriculture warrant.
I think we might even
Someplace
we might be doing that, Bruce. Yeah.
Yep.
Intensive
We're
agriculture.
gonna have to extend the meeting.
And afterward, coveralls and a straw
I
hat.
move to extend the meeting to 5 more minutes.
a second?
Okay. We should take bigger chunks next time.
Yeah,
If we're gonna,
yeah.
if we're gonna do it, we need to look at this so we
I
don't.
knew it was gonna be a
9 o'clock and then we'll be
2-hour
done.
before we even stepped foot in here.
Okay, great.
And then,
All right.
when we meet again in September, could we look at what our budget season, January
Yep.
through April is?
That's a good
Would that
idea.
be okay?
That's fine, yeah, I included this as a point of reference, not necessarily
I thought
to
that
go
was in
over
there
it, but,
somewhere.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
It is, yeah.
We're done with that item then.
oh, there it is.
We'll move on
so we already
to
know what
approving
those
this.
Goal.
Do I have everybody's attention? Great. Approving the goals from the select board retreat from July. And so in your packet, you received basically a summary, basically it's the same kind of report I've done in the past. So there's an overview of the 9 goals that were set, a little bit of a report on what happened at the retreat, and dividing out what goals are multi-year and so forth, and then giving a little bit of detail on the goals, just to flesh them out a bit. So, with that in mind, taking a look at that, were there any particular revisions?
No, I just assume that we can get started working with Eric on things that we're attached to. Perfect.
When he has free time.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
I
not
think this is
happening.
I think this is a nice, I think it's a nice sort of list. I think it's doable. I think it's workable. I like that some of them, we talked about having them be sort of like short-term, long-term, ongoing. I kind of miss a little bit of that because if I think about the public looking at this every time, I think, oh my gosh, 9 things they're trying to accomplish in a year. But really, it's not that. It's sort of ongoing things, new goals, and sort of, that. So I don't know. I guess if we could, maybe that's a step how we want to list them and say, ongoing from previous years, new goals this year. Maybe just split it up into a chunk it a little bit. But other than that, I think we have a good list.
That's actually done under the retreat report. So the retreat
Oh, my
report
bad.
says which goals were completed in 18 and 19, and then which goals were understood to be multi-year.
Right.
Right.
So there were 5 of those.
Yes. So
And
that
then
I missed that.
We added 4 topics.
Yes.
For future years.
Right.
And then in the actual goal details, if there's a year title on it, and some of these, by the way, will go beyond 20.
Oh, I see. So you kind of
Yeah.
got it there at the end. Okay, that's what I was missing. I knew we had done it, but I missed it in that detail part.
Okay.
Good. Yeah.
So I would take a motion on accepting the goals as presented and understanding that they're goals, so we may change
Yeah.
our mind on some things and so on and so forth as we proceed.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept those goals. All in favor? Thank you. And so, when I was thinking of goals and we were talking about potential workshops, in particular, I was thinking about the Parks and Rec one that we talked about.
Yes.
Yes.
Which was gathering all three
Yeah.
committees together and
Yes.
any
I
members of
want
the interested
that
public.
so bad.
And then maybe the Food and Farms one would
That
be
could
one
be
we would,
October, Dennis.
we would try to organize to get
That
local
21st.
farmers in and so on and so forth. So,
Yeah.
those might be the two that would link in.
Coming out of.
And they don't, we don't necessarily have to use those two reserve dates. I mean,
No,
one of these
no,
might
at least we got it.
happen in January or
There.
something.
Yeah, you might ask the farmers and they can't do it.
That's right.
Dates in waiting.
Okay, so, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor? Thank you.